Good morning. It is 6 a.m. and we are starting session 2 of our series. But first, plants. So welcome. If you are catching this on a replay, please hashtag replay for me in the comments, because that A, lets me know that you actually got to see this, and B, that helps other people find this really cool series. Because of course, Facebook algorithms are all about comments. So thank you for joining me this morning. Last session, so on Tuesday, we talked a little bit about distilling and the history and all that fun stuff. So this morning we're going to kind of build on that and talk about this label, therapeutic grade. So last time, I don't think I actually described how distilling happens. So let's go over that real quick. What you have is you have this big cooker pot with all of your plants inside that you're wanting to distill. Under that is going to be a water source of some kind, because of course in order to distill something you have to have steam, and under that is a fire, of course, because you've got to boil the water to make the steam, right? So fire, water, plants, and then the steam is going to circle around in the pot with all the plants, and there's going to be a valve kind of at the top of the cooker pot that lets the steam and oil escape, right? Because as the steam cycles through the plants, it should be pulling that oil out, and then it's going to be taken somewhere to cool and separate, because you want to pull the water back out of the oil, and everybody knows oil and water doesn't mix. So if you allow it to cool, the water will naturally fall out and the oil will naturally rise to the top, and then you can separate the oil off of the water. So in general, that is how distilling works. Excuse me. It was a rough night, so I apologize if I'm looking a little bleary-eyed this morning. All right. So that is how distilling works. Now, concerning the label therapeutic grade, there are actually in that label 4 different grades of oil: grade A, B, C, and D. Grade D oil, and all 4 grades can be labeled therapeutic grade, even though they're different, and as we'll go over those differences. Grade D oil is actually floral water. It's not actually oil at all. And floral water is, remember we were talking about that separator? The water that separates out of the oil still has a little bit of oil in it. Not much, but a little bit. And it can still have some therapeutic properties. So companies can take that floral water that has been pulled off of the distiller and label it as therapeutic oil. Now I'm not going to say good floral water doesn't have therapeutic properties, but I personally believe that it should be labeled floral water and not essential oil, because it's mostly water. All right, so that is grade D, that can be labeled as therapeutic grade oil. Grade C, the way I remember C is C stands for chemicals. So grade C oils can be taken from plants that were grown with chemical fertilizers that had chemicals put on them to control bugs, so chemical pest control. And they can also, in grade C oils, when they distill, they can add chemicals to the plants so that the distilling can happen faster and with higher yield. You know, if someone wants to preserve what is in the plant during distilling, the distilling has to happen low and slow. You know, it's just like cooking. If you want something to come out really good and tender and flavorful, a lot of times you want to cook it low and slow. You don't want to cook it high and fast. High and fast is for searing. Low and slow is for developing flavors. Well, it's kind of similar in your distilling, right? Low and slow, you're going to get all the good stuff. High and fast, you won't, because some of it will be destroyed in the process because the heat is too high. So grade C oils can have all of that. All of the fertilizers, the pest control, the extenders during the distilling process, and all of this can still be labeled therapeutic grade. Now, personally, I do not want that in my oil, because remember, we talked about these essential oils are highly, highly concentrated. So if there are chemicals on the plant, think about it this way. If you eat an apple and it has pesticides on it, you know, you can wash it. You might get some of them off, you might not. But if you eat just one apple, your body can deal with it. But if you eat the entire orchard that is covered in pesticides, it's going to be too much for your body to handle. And so when you're thinking of these little bottles of essential oil, they're highly concentrated. So it's like putting the entire orchard in this little bottle. And you don't want chemicals in there because it's going to be an insane amount that your body's going to struggle with. So grade C stands for chemical, at least in my mind. That's how I remember it. All right, so the next therapeutic grade of oil is called grade B oils. These are actually considered food grade oils, but they can still come from plants that have been treated with pesticides, that have had the chemical fertilizers. I don't remember on the distilling, I don't have it in my notes, if it's a high or low temperature distill, but they are considered food grade oils. But again, they can still have chemicals in them. And then of course, your best therapeutic grade oils are grade A, which have absolutely no chemical fertilizers, no chemical pesticides. They weren't grown with chemicals at all. And they were distilled properly at very low temperatures to preserve all of those chemical constituents that God put in them in the first place. And these are the kind of essential oils that you want. If you ever come across an essential oil and it smells like alcohol, instead of like whatever plant is labeled on the bottle, I think that's a grade C oil is considered, if it has that alcohol-y smell, because they can put alcohol in that. If you run across an essential oil and it says not for external use, so you know, you can't apply it topically to your body, not for internal use, you can't ingest it. These are great big warning signs, because if I get a bottle of lemon oil and I can't put it on my skin or ingest it, then what the heck is in that bottle that wasn't in the lemon that I buy at the grocery store and I have no problem eating, right? So that to me is a great big red flag. Even if it says therapeutic grade on the bottle, if it says not for internal use, do not ingest, or do not apply topically, and it has all these warnings on it, that tells me there's something in that bottle that shouldn't be, because I can eat a lemon, no problem, and not get sick. All right, but like I said, all of these oils can still be labeled therapeutic grade, and there's a huge difference in prices, because obviously a grade A oil that has none of the chemicals, that means we're talking hand weeded, because they can't use the chemical weed killers. You know, the distilling process takes a lot longer because they're doing it properly at low temperatures, which takes longer, more time. And we all know, or I've all heard, you know, that phrase, time is money. They're not adding chemicals to extend the amount of oil produced. So it just, whatever is produced is what there is, and there's no extra. You know, these are going to be more expensive than these lower grade oils that have all these other things in them. You know, the one that's mostly water, the one that has all the chemicals, even the one that's food grade, because of the way they're grown and harvested and distilled. You know, chemicals are cheap, and that is reflected in a cheaper price on the consumer. But they're also required to put those warnings on the bottle, and that is always a huge, huge indicator and red flag. Ah, this has warnings on it. I may not want to have this on myself or around my family, because if you remember, you know, even if something says for aromatic use only, so basically only as in your diffuser, if it's got all these warnings in it and chemicals and stuff, your body's still absorbing it. If you remember in our Bible study, we talked about how the nose is directly connected to the limbic system of our brain, which is the emotional center. Well, that's just it. You absorb things through your nose, not just through your skin or through your mouth, right? So it's still getting into your bloodstream, even if all you're doing is smelling it. And quite frankly, I see that with candles all the time. I used to be a candle junkie. I loved candles. And, you know, my house was filled with scent. And my poor husband, I had to be very careful because my husband was very sensitive to certain scents. They would set off headaches for him. And since we have gotten away from candles, I've noticed that now even I can't go in certain stores that I used to love. I won't list them by name. And the candle aisles at a store that has one, the fragrances give me a headache now. And it's all that fake scent, all those chemicals that my body has gotten rid of, and it's now reacting to, going, whoo, we do not need that in our system. So, you know, look for, if you're looking at getting into essential oils, a really good brand that doesn't have all of these warnings on it and that is actually a grade A oil. I would always recommend Young Living because that is what I trust for my family. You know, they have that seed to seal guarantee that we talked about on Tuesday. And, you know, they're looking at the plants from the seed. They, you know, plant them, they weed them by hand, they grow them, and then they are distilled properly because Gary Young was the leader in distilling. You know, after he learned everything, he continued that knowledge, which is what we looked at on Tuesday, which is fantastic. All right, that was what I had for this morning. I hope you're enjoying this series, and we will continue next week. And next week I am planning on looking at, starting to look at specific oils and plants. So this should be lots of fun. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next week. Have a great day.